Hello again, everybody. Moby Dick. Next few chapters. We're on chapter 23, aren't we? The Lee Shore. Don't forget, if you enjoy listening to Moby Dick, then you might like to use my Buy Me a Coffee link. buymeacoffee.com/A9630. If you want to buy me a coffee, that'd be lovely. And make sure you subscribe to me. Tap onto my face down there in the corner, down there. And then the bell so you get notified next time I post a chapter or whatever else I might do. I have other playlists for nature and history and so on, and I sometimes add a nice video in there, so you might want to have a little browse through that as well. Right, chapter 23, the Lee Shore. Some chapters back, one Bulkington was spoken of. A tall, new-landed mariner encountered in New Bedford at that inn. When on the shivering winter's night the Pequod thrust her vindictive bows into the cold, malicious waves, who should I see standing at the helm but Bulkington? I looked with sympathetic awe and fearfulness upon the man who, in mid-winter, just landed from a 4 years' dangerous voyage, could so unrestingly push off again for still another tempestuous term. The land seemed scorching to his feet. Wonderful as things are ever the unmentionable, deep memories yield no epitaphs. The 6-inch chapter is the stoneless grave of Bulkington. Let me only say that it fared with him as with storm-tossed ship that miserably drives along the leeward land. The port would fain give succour. The port is pitiful, and the port is safety, comfort, hearthstone, supper, warm blankets, friends, and all that's kind to our mortalities. But in that gale, the port, the land, is the ship's direst jeopardy. She must fly all hospitality. One touch of land, though it but graze the keel, would make her shudder through and through. With all her might she crowds off sail offshore. In so doing, fights against the very winds that fain would blow her homeward, seeks all the lashed sea's landlessness again, for refuge's sake forlornly rushing into peril, her only friend, her bitterest foe. Know ye now, Bulkington? Glimpses do ye seem to of that mortally intolerable truth, that all deep, earnest thinking is but the intrepid effort of the soul to keep the open independence of her sea, while the wildest winds of heaven and earth conspire to cast her on the treacherous, slavish shore. But as in landlessness alone resides the highest truth, shoreless, indefinite as God, so better it is to perish in that howling infinite than be ingloriously dashed upon the lee, even if that were safety. For worm-like then, oh, who would craven crawl to land? Terrors of the terrible, is this agony so vain? Take heart, old Bulkington. Bear thee grimly, demigod. Up from the spray of thy ocean perishing, straight up leaps thy apotheosis. Strange chapter, isn't it? Chapter 24, the Advocate. Let's have a little more. As Keekeg and I are now fairly embarked in this business of whaling, and as this business of whaling is somehow yet to be regarded among landsmen as a rather unpoetical and disreputable pursuit, therefore I am all anxiety to convey ye landsmen, of the injustice hereby done to us hunters of whales. In the first place, it may be deemed almost superfluous to establish the fact that among people at large the business of whaling is not accounted on a level with what are called the liberal professions. If a stranger were introduced into any miscellaneous metropolitan society, it would but slightly advance the general opinion of his merits were he presented to the company as a harpooner, say, and in emulation of the naval officers he should append his initials SWF, sperm whale fishery, to his visiting card. Such a procedure would be deemed preeminently presuming and ridiculous. Doubtless, one leading reason why the world declines honouring us whalemen is this: they think that at best our vocation amounts to a butchering sort of business, and that when actively engaged therein we are surrounded by all manner of defilements. Butchers we are, that is true, but butchers also, and butchers of the bloodiest badge, have been all. Martial commanders whom the world invariably delights to honour. That means basically that the most respected soldiers are all butchers as well. And as for the matter of the alleged uncleanliness of our business, ye shall soon be initiated into certain facts, hitherto pretty generally unknown, and which upon the whole will triumphantly plant the sperm whale ship, at least among the cleanliest of things in this tidy earth. But even granting the charge in question to be true, what disordered, slippery decks of a whale ship are comparable to the unspeakable carrion of those battlefields from which so many soldiers return to drink in all ladies' plaudits? And if the idea of peril so much enhances the popular conceit of the soldier's profession, let me assure you that many a veteran who has freely marched up to the battery would quickly recoil at the apparition of the sperm whale's vast tail, fanning into eddies the air above his head. For what are the comprehensible terrors of man compared to the interlinked terrors and wonders of God? But though the world scouts at us whale hunters, yet does it unwittingly pay us the profoundest homage, yea, an all-abounding adoration. For almost all the tapers, lamps, and candles that burn round the globe burn as before so many shrines to our glory. But look at this matter in other lights. Weigh it in all sorts of scales. See what we whalemen are and have been. Why did the Dutch in De Witt's time have admirals of their whaling fleets? Why did Louis XVI of France, at his own personal expense, fit out whaling ships from Dunkirk and politely invite to that town some score or two of families from our own island of Nantucket? Why did Britain, between the years of 1750 and 1788, pay to her whalemen in bounties upwards of £1,000,000? And lastly, how comes it that we whalemen of America now outnumber all the rest of the bonded whalesmen of the world, sail a navy of upwards of 700 vessels, manned by 18,000 men, yearly consuming $4 million, the ship's worth at the time of sailing $20 million, and every year importing our own harbours a well-reaped harvest of $7 million? How come all this, if there not be something puissant in whaling? But this is not the half. Look again. I freely assert that the cosmopolite philosopher cannot for his life point out one single peaceful influence which within the last 60 years has operated more potently upon the whole broad world, taken in one aggregate, than the high and mighty business of whaling. One way or another, it has begotten events so remarkable in themselves, and so continuously momentous in their sequential issues, that whaling may be well regarded as that Egyptian mother who bore offspring themselves pregnant from her womb. It would be a hopeless, endless task to catalogue all these things. Let a handful suffice. For many years past, the whale ship has been the pioneer in ferreting out the remotest and least well-known parts of the earth. She has explored seas and archipelagos which had no chart, where no Cook or Vancouver had ever sailed. If American and European men of war now peacefully ride in once savage harbours, let them fire salutes to the honour and the glory of the whale ship, which originally showed them the way, and first interpreted between them and the savages. They may celebrate as they will the heroes of exploring expeditions, your Cooks, your Krusensterns, but I say that scores of anonymous captains have sailed out of Nantucket that were as great and greater than your Cook and your Krusenstern, for in their succourless empty-handedness they, in the heathenish sharked waters, and by the beaches of unrecorded Javelin Islands, Javelin Islands battled with virgin wonders and terrors that Cook, with all his marines and muskets, would not have willingly dared. All that has made such a flourish in the old South Sea voyages, those things were but the lifetime commonplace of our heroic Nantucketers, often adventurers with which Vancouver dedicates 3 chapters to, these men uncounted, unworthy of being set down in the ship's common log. Ah, the world! Oh, the world! Until the whale fishery rounded Cape Horn, no commerce but colonial, scarcely any intercourse but colonial, was carried on between Europe and the long line of the opulent Spanish provinces on the Pacific coast. It was the whalemen who first broke through the jealous policy of the Spanish crown touching those colonies, and if space permitted, it might be distinctly shown how from those whalemen at last eventuated the liberation of Peru, Chile, and Bolivia from the yoke of old Spain, and the establishment of the eternal democracy in those parts. That great America on the other side of the sphere, Australia, was given to the enlightened world by the whaleman. After its first blunder-born discovery by a Dutchman, all other ships long shunned those shores as pestiferously barbarous. But the whale ship touched there. The whale ship is the true mother of that now mighty colony. Moreover, in the infancy of the Australian settlement, the emigrants were once time saved from starvation by the benevolent biscuit of the whale ship, luckily dropped an anchor in their waters. The uncounted isles of all Polynesia confess the same truth, and do the commercial homage to the whale ship. That cleared the way for the missionary and the merchant, and in many cases carried the primitive missionaries to their first destinations. If that double-bolted land, Japan, is ever to become hospitable, it is the whale ship alone to whom the credit will be due, for already she is on the threshold. But if, in the face of all this, you still declare that whaling has no aesthetically noble associations connected with it, then I am ready to shiver 50 lances with you there, and unhorse you with a split helmet every time. The whale no famous author, and whaling no famous chronicler, you will say. The whale no famous author, and whaling no famous chronicler. Who wrote the first account of our Leviathan? Who but mighty Job? And who composed the first narrative of a whaling voyage? Who but no less a prince than Alfred the Great? Who with his own royal pen took down the words from Other, the Norwegian whale hunter of those times, and who pronounced our glowing eulogy in Parliament? Who but Edmund Burke? True enough, but when whalemen themselves are poor devils and have no good blood in their veins, no good blood in their veins, they have something better than royal blood there. The grandmother of Benjamin Franklin was Mary Morrell, afterwards by marriage Mary Folger, one of the old settlers of Nantucket and the ancestress to a long line of Folgers and harpooners, all kith and kin to noble Benjamin, this day darting the barbed iron from one side of the world to the other. Good again, but then all confess that somehow whaling is not respectable. Whaling not respectable? Whaling is imperial. By Old English statutory law, the whale is declared a royal fish. Oh, that's only nominal. The whale himself has never figured in any imposing way. The whale himself never figured in any imposing way. In one of the mighty triumphs given to a Roman general upon his entering the world's capital, the bones of a whale brought all the way from the Syrian coast were the most conspicuous object in this symboled procession. Granted, since you cite it, but say what you will, there is no real dignity in whaling. No real dignity in whaling. The dignity of our calling the very heavens attest. Cetus is a constellation in the south, no more. Drive down your hat in presence of the Tsar and take it off to Kikeg. No more. I know a man that in his lifetime has taken 350 whales. I account that man more honourable than that great captain of antiquity who boasted of taking an army of as many walled towns. And as for me, if by any possibility that there be any yet undiscovered prime thing in me, if I shall ever deserve any real repute in that small but high-hushed world, which I might not be unreasonably ambitious of, if hereafter I do anything that, upon the whole, a man might rather have done than to have left undone, if at my death my executors, or more properly my creditors, find any precious MSS in my desk, miscellaneous things, I guess, then here I prospectively ascribe all the honour and all the glory to whaling, for a whale ship was my Yale College and my Harvard. Chapter 25, Postscript. In behalf of the dignity of whaling, I would fain advance naught but substantiated facts. But after embattling his facts, an advocate who should wholly suppress a not unreasonable surmise which might tell eloquently upon his cause, such an advocate, would he not be blameworthy? Well, it is well known that at the coronation of kings and queens, even modern ones, a certain curious process of seasoning them for their functions is gone through. There is a salt cellar of state, so-called, and there may be a caster of state. How they use the salt precisely, who knows? Certain I am, however, that a king's head is solemnly oiled at his coronation, even as a head of salad. Can it be, though, that they anoint it with such a view of making its interior run well as they anoint machinery? Well, much might be ruminated here concerning the essential dignity of this regal process, because in common life we esteem but meanly and contemptibly a fellow who anoints his hair with palpably smelling of that anointing. In truth, a mature man who uses hair oil, less medicinally, that man has probably got a quaggy spot in him somewhere. As a general rule, he can't amount to much in his totality. But the only thing to be considered here is this: what kind of oil is used at coronations? Certainly it cannot be olive oil, nor macassar oil, nor castor oil, nor bear's oil, nor train oil, nor cod liver oil. What then can it possibly be but the sperm oil in its unmanufactured, unpolluted state, the sweetest of all oils? Think of that, you loyal Britons. We whalemen supply your kings and queens with coronation stuff. End of chapter. Well, he's a proud whaler, isn't he? But is that Ishmael, or is it Herman Melville saying all this? Is it Melville himself pointing out how whaling is so great a thing? And notice he said that whaling has no great chronicler, no writer. Except now it does, of course, in Herman Melville himself. So he proved himself wrong there, didn't he? Okay, that'll do for the moment. Make sure you subscribe to me. Tap onto my face down there in the corner. And then the bell so you get notified. And you'll hear more of Moby Dick, and you'll see some other nice videos as well. Some castles and some... I'm doing one at the moment about autumn colours that you might like. And if you really want to, you could pay for my coffee. Use the Buy Me a Coffee link. buymeacoffee.com/A9630. As some of you have done, so thanks for that. And I'll see you next time. Bye-bye, everyone.